Hi, I'm Gillian Utesch. I am the host of a Superwoman Handbook and the author of A White Collar Wife. A White Collar Wife is my personal story through love, loss, and joy. You can listen to it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, anywhere you catch your podcast. This chapter is called Buy the Ticket, Take the Ride. It is the last chapter in A White Collar Wife, but as life has been doing lately, it just seemed appropriate to share this with y'all now. With graduation season happening, a lot of my girlfriends are having their kiddos graduate high school and even college, and that is a real watershed moment, not only for the mamas but for the kiddos, because I think so often we spend our entire lives thinking about that moment happening, talking about, threatening about, preparing for, but then when it actually comes, it's like, wow, what do I do? I've had so many conversations, so many folks have kind of reached out and said, first of all, what do I say? What do I say in the graduation card? You just say how you feel. I don't feel like this is your one opportunity to give a life's lesson. I mean, I've made an entire podcast about it, so just, speak from the heart, but it just kind of felt like the right time in the season of things to share this chapter. But it is technically the last chapter in the book. And so it is called Buy the Ticket, Take the Ride. I made an impulse purchase on the street corner in Las Vegas and I bought a helicopter ticket to the Hoover Dam. Now, who buys anything on the street corner in Las Vegas? Let's start there. Not to mention something that involves aircraft or really anything motorized beyond like a hoverboard. But yep, your girl bought a helicopter. And I mean, obviously, I didn't die. So, okay, yeah. And I did get really great views. But I look back on that and I think, good God, girl, what were you thinking? But, I then rented a manual convertible Porsche and I drove it from San Diego to San Francisco. Now, I can drive a manual because my grandfather taught me how to when I was like 7 on his like farm in Idaho, and I haven't done it since. So that was a very interesting little pickup in the parking lot and doing that Turo or whatever it was called back in the day, but transfer. But it was fun and just experiencing having the top down and seeing the world and being able to move at my own pace. It was something I'm so glad that I did. I spent almost 20 years at an ad agency living like Bon Jovi. Okay, when we would travel for work, I would never admit that. But when we would travel for work, we would wake up with like chicken bones and vodka bottles in our bathroom sink. Somebody would have a shoe. You ever always hear people talk about, who's that person that loses a shoe on the side of the road? I think I may know one or five people who have lost a shoe on the side of the road. Now, I don't remember fully how they lost the shoe. I may know 1/100th of the story of how they lost the shoe. And we can get the rest of the party together. Maybe collectively we can put together a Nancy Drew and figure it out. But yeah. And I can't even call that season work because I was hip to hip with the most beautiful people that were absolute I can't call them friends, family. We grew up together. We came of age together. We came into life together. We went through everything. We went through marriage, divorce, kids, cancers, dogs. To call it work is just the wrong word because work is a four-letter word, y'all. But it was an amazing 20-year chapter, and I say that I wish everyone would have a chapter like that, but I sit here not wanting to get struck by lightning because I know very few will. And I know how incredibly lucky I am that I had that. Now, there are some really jacked up chapters in this story, as y'all will read, but I feel like life gave me that one to kind of really kind of balance out some of the other ones. So, buy the ticket, take the ride. You never know. I witnessed firsthand many things in life, and I now fully understand why Britney Spears had her meltdown in 2007. Girl, I saw you have it in 2000, and I now fully understand why you had it. I got drunk in Jamaica. I then got myself lost, like lost, had no idea where I was. Even Christopher Columbus was like, girl, you on your own. I found a random bike, somehow remembered it is like riding a bike. Somehow I remembered how to ride the bike. I used the smell of chlorine to get myself back to my hotel. Yeah, so there, buy the ticket, take the ride. I fell in love with a man who was absolutely charming and romantic and treated me like a princess. I would wake up and there would be jewelry or little trinkets on the coffee cup, the little saucer of my coffee cup. He was also absolutely abusive. I still have, every time I run my tongue over the inside of my lip, I can feel where my tooth went through the last time he backhanded me so hard. I hit the wall and then fell on the concrete. All the while telling me how sorry he was and how I was a good person. I didn't deserve to be treated this way. And that, he was really sorry. He was going to do better. And I believed him each and every time. I have now learned that this is called generational trauma, and I have to work to break the cycle of this. And we've talked a lot about this on a Superwoman Handbook, and I'm so glad and so fortunate to have the women who have come forward to share their stories and who have shared the work and the paths that we can do to actually break those cycles. So buy the ticket, take the ride. I finally learned what Dolly and Kenny were singing about when they said, "You can't make new old friends." I have seen amazing sunsets on amazing shorelines, walking with dogs that were the most beautiful creatures God ever created. And I think, why was I ever entrusted with their care? It's just moments I just want to kind of freeze in my mind, to remember forever. I came along during an age with the internet. I am a part of a generation that we had an analog youth and a digital adulthood, and we really truly grew up with the internet. I would not have it any other way. We had to listen to the radio, like hover over it for our song to come on and then hit record for the cassette. And then, by college, we had MP4s. They weren't quite iPods yet, but it became that. And so then we could have it on demand once you stole it off Napster. So we really grew up with the internet. And then once, when the internet was there, then, memes kind of became the thing. And that was so fun. Because that's the stuff we were doing with magazine clippings already. We were young girls, if you didn't know that, we were already making memes. So it was so fun to be able to do them digitally and then to be able to make goofy videos. So we were already doing that with our Polaroids. Do you know how many Polaroids it takes to make a funny video and how expensive those Polaroids are? So, all right, anyhow, I digress. Buy the ticket, take the ride. I bought wine I couldn't afford. How much wine okay, first of all, how much wine have I bought? How much wine that I couldn't afford have I bought? And how many nights have I stayed up drinking with friends way later than I should have? Countless. I would do it all over again because those stories, those moments, those memories, that's what life's about. Now, don't think I'm here advocating alcohol, okay? I know that mocktails are in, and girl, you do you, okay? Stay up all night with your girlfriend with your mocktail, okay? That is just as cool. But I'm just here telling my white collar wife story. I bought jewelry I couldn't afford, and I still wear it to this day. I bought jewelry I couldn't afford that I don't wear. So I wish I could go back and really have a heart to heart with myself and say, hey, is this something you're buying just in the now? Is this something that you're doing just because you're trying to kind of fill a void or fill a proxy for something else? And if you're being honest with yourself, that's probably the situation. It was oftentimes, as I've learned through kind of going through my healing journey, I often would buy things to fill holes in my heart and in my soul that humans weren't filling. So, yes, think about it. But even if I advocate for the American economy, if you can't afford it, buy it anyway, if it makes you happy. I have rented boats I couldn't afford for day trips with friends, and I still to this day have cramps in my belly from laughing so hard. As we were going through my photos and things for this to write this, it just brings back all these memories, of days that were so full of life and so full of joy. And you think to yourself, how could life ever hit this peak again? Like, how could anything be, just more than this? Just the sun was so bright, the air was so crisp, the water was so perfect, the sunscreen smelled so nice like sunscreen, the jokes were just on point. Like, how could anything be better than this? And then you forget about it. Life goes on. You get a big power bill and you're like, ugh, life sucks. Uh, but looking at those photos, it just instantly brings back those memories. So it's been nice to kind of go through. I snuck backstage to bands, y'all, that I can't even tell you the name of them. I mean, I'm all about First Amendment, but I ain't about outing myself. So, I mean, first of all, I'm like 4 foot 1.5. So I can wiggle up to the front of the stage, which I learned how to do. That's the number one, it's one of the top 5 life skills you need to learn if you don't know how to do that. I'd wiggle up to the front of the stage and then I get someone to kind of lift me up and then I kind of, so I have been backstage to bands I can't even tell you, seen things I can't even tell you, and I would do it all over again. It was a thrill, a rush to see what a crowd looks like when you're standing on the stage looking out. It's amazing. It's absolutely, I can't describe it to you. So buy the ticket. Take the ride. I rearranged my daily work schedule so that I could sit in a hot car with my windows down and do afternoon school pickup. She always had some kind of tea when she got in the car about someone, or sometimes we would just sit quietly and reflect about our day. And not only did I see a lot of hysterical stuff, you can check out my YouTube videos where I documented a lot of it, like the porta potty that got pulled out of the back with the little shower curtain. Yeah, it was hysterical. I was like, okay, baby gotta go. Mama had a porta potty, like a little, training potty. The shoe that got thrown out the window. So this was during morning drop off. So little pumpkin, okay, first of all, you're rolling up to school. Get your shoes on, okay? It's not a surprise. It's stop and go, bumper to bumper. It's like New York City traffic. You're arriving at the school, put your shoes on. But this little muffin couldn't find the other shoe, so gets out and over his shoulders like, "Mom, my shoe!" She chucks it out the window like a champ. And it was like the seventh. Does baseball have 7 innings? I guess I don't know. Y'all know I don't do sports with balls. It was like a seventh inning touchdown. He grabs the shoe and puts it on. Now, how his backpack didn't like pull him over, during this whole capade, I have no idea. But I would not trade any of those hot moments in my car I had just gotten an iPhone. I can't even say on my BlackBerry because I had just moved over to iPhones at that time, balancing my life to see those moments and get that tea fresh out of the kettle each day. It was definitely a highlight of my life that this tucked in my memory bank there. I also no longer spent nights out. I instead spent nights in watching her do whatever TikTok dance was on and play dress up with the dogs and, put them in different little outfits and come up with different plays and charades and things that they were going to be in. That brought me way more fun than, going to the ballet or going out to a club or now there's a season for that. And that's kind of another thing, buy the ticket, take the ride. In each season of your life, go to the ballet. I was at one point in my life, I was a pretty high level sponsor at the ballet. And I loved it. They had fantastic meet and mingles. You got to go backstage, see the ballerinas, where you had to turn them. If they were sideways, you couldn't see them because they were so thin, but you had to turn them the other way. But that was a great season of life. But then this one was too. So it is so hard to kind of choose a favorite. But I'm glad that at each season I bought the ticket and I took the ride because you only get one beautiful life. You only get one chance. Well, I mean, unless you believe in reincarnation, but that's the topic on the podcast. You only get one chance at this. And so I've always wanted to have no regrets. And as I was sitting down, writing the book, and then kind of doing the little tip and end for the book, I really felt like, yeah, I haven't, there's still more to come, y'all. I mean, I'm only 29, but so far I felt like I hadn't left anything on the table. I loved that on the weekends we would go up to Busch Gardens and Water Country. My parents lived up there, and I tell you what, it would take more time to get from their house to the gate of their neighborhood than it would once we got from the gate of their neighborhood into Busch Gardens. Like that's how close they were. And we had it down to a science. We knew exactly what shoes to wear. We knew what gear to bring based off the weather and the UV sun exposure. We knew exactly which angle, which way to take the park. We knew if it was a second, third Saturday and this event was in town, or if this sporting event was happening, or if it was maybe a church day. We knew this was okay, skip this ride. We had that down to a science. And it was so much fun to go up and do that and hang out on the weekends, buy the ticket, take the ride, take the little train around sometimes just to kind of cool down. I remember there was one time we'd gone in, and even though I knew the park, she knew the park, I don't really, yes, the bee. I'm remembering now, the bee. The bee stung her on the head. And I don't know, actually, now that I'm telling it, if I want to be fully accurate, I don't know if the bee stung her or if she stung herself with the bee, I think is more accurate of the story. But anyhow, the really cute I don't want to say EMT man, but the little EMT man came by and helped, and I was like, oh, hello. Okay. And then we kind of had to calm down. I was like, let's just take the train around. Let's just calm down. She's like, yes, let's just take the train around. I was like, so we were like New York City girls, just taking our train around, calming down from our bee stick. It was just, funny moments like that, that I'm so glad that we, bought the ticket and took the bee sting ride. One of the rides I was not expecting to take was in the spring of 2024. We took an all girls spring break trip down to South Carolina. And it started off, honestly, as a joke. Y'all know I have had Boykin Spaniels since my husband passed. I hope you're keeping a bingo card. Because there will be a pop quiz of how many husbands I've had and in what order, who you put them in. But I got my first dog, and it introduced me to this beautiful community of Boykin Spaniel owners, and just not only the athleticism of that dog, but how just loving and what a companion. And I could go on and on. Anyhow, but I've long been in the Boykin Spaniel community, and they are the state dog of South Carolina. And living in North Carolina was really easy for us to get down to South Carolina, where they kind of have their national headquarters, we'll say. So in April, around Easter, usually kind of around spring break, conveniently enough, they do their family reunion, as I call it. It has a formal name, but for this segment, we'll call it family reunion. And so I usually would go down, and when we had Coco, she would actually compete. Because Coco was a beast, man, okay? She would actually flush and retrieve, and she would do the field trials, and she would do all that. Now she'd also wear a tutu, and she would chase a hot dog and do all that. So, but when we got Sophia, Sophia was a breeding dog, and, that's what she did. She made babies, which is a tough gig, y'all. Okay. So she gets full credit for that deal. So we would kind of take her down, and I said to Jane, I said, hey, wouldn't it be fun if we went down for a girls' trip for spring, but we went for spring break for a girls' trip, and we went to the Boykin family reunion. I'm thinking that she is going to smack me down so fast that like a feather is going to blow me over. And instead, she's like, no, I, I want to go. I think it'd be fun. Whole trip for spring break, but I couldn't do like Paris or the Caribbean or, anything the cool rich moms could do. I'm like, do you want to go stay in an Airbnb on a lake in South Carolina and go play with dogs and watch them chase hot dogs around? The dogs that aren't sporty enough to, do real sports? For her to be like, yes, I was just like, oh my gosh, talk about buy the ticket, take the ride, like I was so excited. So she was able to kind of figure out which friends, and y'all know what it's like when you're trying to coordinate with friends. It's like those boards you see with serial killers where they got the strings connecting. It's like, what friend can I live with for 7 days that neither one of us will end up on a CSI, and which friend then is going to also be in town, and which friend doesn't have beef with that friend, and which friend. And I'm like, girl, okay, you work that chart. So we were able to figure out which friends could go. And we went, and it remains one of the best weeks of my life because it was so organic and genuine. Just hanging in a house on the lake. We didn't have distractions of work and just trying to go to an amusement park or trying to go hit a museum, or, oh, we're in New York for 36 hours. We've got to hit 14 shows, and we got to eat at 9 restaurants, and that's all well and good. And I'm not dissing that, but this was just such a cool time to hang out with them. And each girl had a night that she made dinner, which was hysterical in itself. That's a whole separate podcast, so I won't dig into it. But it was just such a beautiful week. And I'm so glad that I put it out there that we do it, and that everybody in that instance bought the ticket and took the ride, because you just never know. So I'll leave you with that. In your beautiful lives, my friends, may you always buy the ticket and take the ride.